We've been discussing the last few times what in the world does this whole thing mean when Jesus said in Matthew 28, go and make disciples. I really believe there's a great deal of misunderstanding in terms of what that means. Some people think, well, that means go into all the world and make converts, help them make a decision to give their life to Jesus Christ. Certainly that's part of it. But we said last time, if you take the 269 times the word disciple is used in the New Testament, if you look each one of them up, do your due diligence, throw them in the top of a funnel. Out of the bottom of the funnel, drop three things that the concept of discipling means in the New Testament. First of all, we said last time, the word disciple means to be a learner. And we said, and you can go back and watch it, biblically speaking, true learning only takes place when it changes how you live. So if it's not changing us and transforming us to help us to become more like Jesus, Romans 8:29, then we really haven't learned it. We've been exposed to the truth, but not changed by the truth. The second thing you'll discover if you do that study in terms of what the word disciple means, it means, secondly, not only a learner, but number two, it means to be a follower. To be a follower. The scripture says in Mark chapter 2, verse 14, as he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, Jesus told him, and Levi got up and followed him. And so the implications of following are demanding. And so as we think about following Jesus, would you call yourself a follower of Jesus? Let me just give you a couple thoughts on that. The scripture says also in 1 Timothy, chapter number 4, actually let me go back for a second to Mark 3:14, and I'll get back to Timothy. In Mark 3:14, he appointed 12, designating them as apostles, that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach. And so Jesus here calls his disciples to follow him, to be with him, and as they're with him, they will learn what it means to follow him. Paul, it's very interesting, the Apostle Paul said in the scripture, he said, follow me as I follow Christ. And so Paul basically was saying, I'm not a perfect person, but I'm a progressing person. So follow me. I want to be a model for you of what it means to follow Christ. And I really think that's what we're all to be. We're all to be models. Imperfect, but models of people who are committed to following Jesus. I think it was a University of Southern California professor that said that the greatest means of communication is modeling. So what are you modeling, and what are other people seeing as you follow Jesus and model out what it means to be one of his? Someone said this, am I limiting my disciples by my limitations? Again, we are not going to be perfect in this life, but we ought to be progressing. Then the 1 Timothy passage that I alluded to a moment ago, 1 Timothy 4, verse 12 and verse 15, he said, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. Be diligent in these matters, give yourself wholly to them, so that everyone may see your progress. So again, what he's saying here, we're not looking at perfect people, but progressing people. But here's a closing thought. Nothing Jesus did ever contradicted what he said. And so, the problem here is of understanding that as I follow Jesus, people are going to follow me. And they will either get a good model, a positive model, or they will get an effective model. So the question is, are you following Jesus? Are you focusing on Jesus? Are you sticking with Jesus? Are you doing what Jesus says? And so what this implies then, to be a follower of Jesus, means to be willing to be obedient to his truth and obedient to him. So, let me ask you again, are you learning? Are you allowing the truth of Scripture to change you, transform you? And then number two, are you following him? Are you a follower of Jesus Christ? You think about that.